Top of the morning to you. This is Monday with Friday, wishing you a great week ahead. I am nearly tickled to death that viewership of my last near-death while still a youth story was exactly 100% higher than my last installment in my serious series, What Racial Justice Looks Like. I should quit while I'm ahead, but I'll take the risk to tell you a couple more stories of how I could have died a handful of times while still 18. Now, I can't recall how old I was when this next episode occurred, but I figure I might have been about 8. My mother reared chickens. There was an old étagère below our house. Well, first in Trinidad, for some reason they would build houses on columns. Some folks called them stilts, so that the ground floor of the house was about 7 feet above ground. This allowed all kinds of activity beneath the house: storage, washing, storage of bicycles, parking of cars if you had one, playing marbles and other games for the boys and girls, and in the case of my mother, an old étagère in which her chickens laid eggs and hatched chickens. For my Trini friends, just in case you missed it, an étagère is a safe, and for my Jamaican friends, it is a break front. One day, I was under the house playing with one of our very tame and lovely chickens. She came up to me and I sat down feeding her and petting her. What I did not learn yet in my single-digit age was that petting a dog or petting a cat may not be injurious to your health. But petting chickens, although ordinarily okay, may be suicidal if there are roosters or cocks around, because, as you know, cocks do not like anybody else petting their chickens, whether another cock or even a human. And that day, there was a huge rooster standing by, patiently waiting to see when this little human interferer would stop interfering with his woman, his chicken. All I knew was that that fellow kicked up a run from where he was, like a cricket fast bowler making his run up to bowl his first ball of the game, or like Usain Bolt breaking out of the blocks. That rooster made a mad dash up to me and spurred me right across the neck, leaving a good, serious scratch. If I were a little smaller, and if that rooster was a little bigger, you know that that cock could have caught my poor little jugular vein, and that would have been the end of me. But I lived to tell the tale. There was another time it could have been the end of me. I think I was in the 4th grade. I can't remember what the devil I did, but my teacher marched me off to the headmaster's office. Now, in those days, corporal punishment was standard fare. You got licks for getting to school late, licks for having dirty fingers, licks for the wrong uniform, licks if the dog ate your homework, licks if your homework was wrong, licks for everything. I mean, if it wasn't the 1960s, the jails would be full of teachers and parents, not drug pushers and weed smokers, you know. I mean, there'd be a serious teacher shortage back then. All schools would have had to close down because you couldn't find teachers. All of them would be in prison for child abuse. And you see, my headmaster back then, Mr. Moradali, that fellow had one mean left hand that you always wanted to avoid. But thank God, that day, Mr. Moradali was not in office, and the deputy headmaster, Mr. 𝗥cie, was in office. So I went into Mr. 𝗥cie's office. I told him which teacher sent me and why she sent me. Well, it looked like Mr. 𝗥cie thought that it was a nonsensical reason for me to be in his office for discipline. Now, the school back then was a single open building wherein the classes were separated only by standing blackboards and partitions. So sometimes you could hear in your class what they were teaching in the class next door. That is why I am so smart, because I learned everything they taught in every class in that school, you know. So back to me and Mr. 𝗥cie. Mr. 𝗥cie closed the door. Mr. 𝗥cie picked up a football. Mr. 𝗥cie said to me, I am going to beat that ball. Each time I hit it, You must cry out as loud as you can so that your teacher all the way down to the other end of the schoolhouse can hear. So Mr. 𝗥cie hit the football and I cried out. Mr. 𝗥cie hit the football a second time. I cried out a second time louder. And so it went for several more lashes. Mr. 𝗥cie beat, I cried. 𝗥cie beat, I screamed. 𝗥cie beat, I wailed. Mr. 𝗥cie beat that football until it bust and until the cane broke. Let me tell you this. If it was me that Mr. 𝗥cie beat that day like he beat that football, I would be dead. You hear Christians saying Jesus died for them and that he gave his blood for them instead of them. Well, let me tell you what that football did for me. I was doomed from elementary school to become a minister, you know. And it's only because I am a serious Christian that I haven't opened up the church of the holy football. I mean, Messi, Ronaldo, Neymar, Lewandowski, Maradona, Drogba, Toure, Morgan, Leroux, Loy, and Da Silva. All of them boys and girls could be members of my church. But then, God would get vexed with me and punish me in a way I still wonder if God nearly punished me to death when I was 15 years old. But you're going to have to wait for next week's story to hear that one. I am Michael Friday, and your week just got roundedly better. I'll see you again next week. Happy Monday, rolling all the way to Friday.